Lamar Jackson. Big Keith Trailer. Look at him rumble.
Week 5 is upon us, and the tale of my season is that a storied franchise has fallen on hard times. You can apply it to either of my teams, Manchester United or the New York Giants, and I'm not bothered. It doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered, okay?
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl. Touchdown! No! No! 24-yard attempt. Oh, he hits the upright. It's no good. Derek Johnson, the all-time leading tackler in the history of the Chiefs. And he misses it. That's impossible. The Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs.
On the podcast this week, we've got our resident NFL superfans, one whose side is quietly getting the job done with a quarterback who's basically a cheat code, and the other whose side, well, isn't. And boy, let me tell you, are you going to hear it about it from him again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And we'll be with Dave in just a minute. Ravens fan Dan is with me in Manchester.
Yeah, I'm not jinxing it. We're not talking about them till next week, probably when they are playing in London. For now, we'll just leave them nicely to it because it's Pittsburgh this week.
Yeah, Browns and Pittsburgh in like consecutive weeks. Anyway,
Bengals, Browns, Pittsburgh.
Wow. Kirk Cousins superfan and Vikings aficionado Dave Keane is in the UK's second city. And in case you wanted the order, it goes Manchester, Birmingham and then London. Evening, Dave.
Hello, mate. How's it going? I can think of a couple of reasons, say 2 reasons why Manchester's good. I can think of 3 reasons why Istanbul is better.
This week, we look ahead to all the TV games. We discuss what's caught our eye in the NFL. And if anybody mentions Taylor Swift, it's an instant red card and 2 podcast ban. In association with endzonekit.co.uk, this is Utter Punts. Let's not mention the association football from this point onwards. I'm also putting a ban on any mention of association football from here on out. Let's instead talk about what's caught our eye in American football this week. I was having a look down the list. I normally try and make some kind of judgment as to who I think goes first. And actually, I'm not sure there's any real stand out, this needs to go at the top of the shop. So I'm going to go with you, Dan. And you wanted to talk about Mr. Claypool.
Yeah, I did. Only because, you know, we spoke a few times about trades that go horribly wrong or trades that go horribly right. So a couple of years ago, the end of last season, the Bears traded a second-round pick for Chase Claypool from the Steelers. The Steelers don't let many good players go in trades. So you already question it. They'd also just accepted a second-round pick from the Ravens for Roquan Smith. Now, Roquan Smith has become, arguably, and Dave will probably argue it because he plays for the Ravens, but he's probably the best off-ball linebacker in football, and it's hard to think of a better one, really. And the partnership he's made with Patrick Queen and the Ravens has made a massive difference to them, and they're probably the best linebacking duo in the game. So they gave up. They gave away Roquan Smith for Chase Claypool, in essence. Although actually Claypool was a higher pick. And this week they've benched him. He's come out and complained about the coaching, which, to be fair, Justin Fields did 2 weeks before. But then what's really confusing is the franchise is clearly broken. And you always know in an NFL franchise because the front office and the coach who's doing the interviews aren't on the same page. So the player has said one thing. He said, I was asked not to come to the pit, to the ground to play in the game. I was told not to come. The coach in the post-match interview said it was our decision. It was his decision. He decided not to come to the game.
Yeah, we gave him a choice. You can either come to the game or you can stay at home.
Which is Matt Eberflus, who's the coach there. And then Ryan Poles, the GM, said, actually, no, we told him not to come to the game. So there's clearly a disconnect between the front office and the head coach, which then puts the head coach in a position where he has to come out again and say, no, yeah, he's right. We told him to stay away, and we told him to now stay away for the full week. Instead, it just screams of absolute shoddiness, doesn't it? And what's alarming is that at the moment, because of the trade the Bears made with the Panthers to give away this year's number 1 pick for Bryce Young, which isn't going particularly well, the Bears currently sit with the number 1 and 2 pick for next year's draft, because they're the worst 2 teams in football.
Wow.
So are the Bears really going to trust Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus to use those 2 picks? Now, I know we're talking about next season there, but these sort of trades always have this long-lasting impact, and it's just, when you see a team that should have been on the rise in demise, it's funny when it's not your team, I suppose.
Yeah, it still feels a bit tough, doesn't it?
It's messy. It's really messy, and you feel sorry for the coach because he's being put in a position where, is he really now in control of his own players? What's the locker room thinking about it? You know, they were 28-7 up against the Broncos and lost. So I mean, the training ground, the whole thing must just feel pretty rotten at the minute, and you can't imagine them doing much more this season, really.
Yeah. Dave, what have you made of that whole situation?
So Ryan Poles apparently had the choice between the Bears and the Vikings, and he chose the Bears on account of the fact that he wanted to do a total rebuild. He then decided to keep Justin Fields. Fields' passing has never convinced me, but weirdly this weekend he looked better than he ever has done, like throwing the ball, and for some reason decided not to actually use his legs to get any cheap touchdowns, which would have been nice for him, I bet. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an unmitigated disaster. I think Poles is looking pretty much clueless. It's really easy to have the first overall pick, trade it away, and then everyone claims it's a great trade. You have the first overall pick. Like, okay, you did bring in a very good wide receiver, but you haven't actually done anything to make sure the right coaching's in place for Fields. And when Fields himself brings up the coaching, as he did a couple of weeks ago, you've got to look at it from a perspective of things are right, but they didn't half look good for a bit until the wheels came off at the weekend. So I just don't know. It's a really weird situation. I'm just really glad that Poles isn't the Vikings GM. I'd rather have Quasi than him, regardless of how people feel about Quasi.
It's really nice to have Dave back. You can tell that he's not quite at 100% yet, can't you? He's coughing and spluttering away in the background, but it is nice to have him back after fine, my backside. What did you want to talk about this week, Dave? You talking about quarterbacks?
So, yeah, I mean, basically, quarter of the season's in the books now. At least it would have been a couple of years ago. I thought it might be nice to have a check-in on some of the draft prospects from last year that we've mentioned previously and talk about how they were doing. I'll go through them in order of worst to best in terms of how successful I think they're going to be in the NFL. Unfortunately, for Panthers fans, Bryce Young at the weekend, that was not a good thing to see. He struggles with stretching the defence. He struggles with getting out of the way in the pocket. He got sacked 3 times by a safety at the weekend because physically he's not. I mean, he has no chance of getting a human being off him when they get to him. That's a worry at quarterback. I am worried for them. I'm also gutted for them, but they seem to have traded away a pick which would have got them a very good quarterback next year in order to move up for Bryce Young. I hope he proves me wrong on account of the fact that the more great quarterbacks in the league, the better. But there's so many risks with him, despite the fact that his anticipation for throwing is different class, and he's still showing that it's different class. He's already been injured for half the games he's been available for, and he didn't look fit nor ready to be leading an NFL team at the weekend. And they can't tank. They traded away their pick. So, they might need to think about sitting in for a year and letting Dalton play. Andy Richardson looks physically, potentially one of the most dominating QBs in the league. Major concern for him coming out was the fact that he can't actually throw the ball short because he was basically treating everything like a cannon. In the pros, that strength in his arm has come to fruition for me. I think he's doing better of a touch passing than I expected at this point in his career. I think he's going to be a very good player. But CJ Stroud, man, what a start to the season he's had. The major worry about him was what he did under pressure in the big moments. A little bit Kirko, right? But he actually had a game which showed his potential to step up under pressure for Ohio State in the college playoffs.
9 minutes, Dan. Sorry, Dave. 9 minutes.
Mate, I'm wearing a Viking shirt. I just thought it was easiest that way.
9 minutes. That's actually a record.
Who had 9 minutes in the sweep? Was it Producer Bell? Yeah.
What a shitty sweepskate that would be. It would be the sweepstake of cheapskates.
What I was drinking.
What would it be? 50p in a piece, boys?
I think that's a great idea. Right, okay, from this moment onwards, the Utter Punts drinking game, the first rule in the Utter Punts drinking game is every time Keno mentions Kirk, you have to take a finger.
I feel for you all.
A drink.
That's the thing. Oh, my God.
You don't have to take my finger. You can take your own finger. How's that?
I'm still talking.
Any other quarterbacks while we're having a laugh?
just Stroud, mate. He's been exceptional. I think the fact that the Texans are 2-2 behind that O-line, he's had all 5 starting O-linemen out this year injured, including a very good left tackle in Larry Tunsil. People moving around, more injuries at the weekend. It shouldn't be sustainable for him, but I think that even if the rest of the season goes poorly, he has shown the ability to play at a very high level in the NFL, despite a poorer O-line, which is incredibly impressive at this stage. So CJ Stroud, what a player. He took apart the Jags. That's probably his best performance so far, but I'm expecting a lot more from him now.
You two have gone quite serious. I'm going to go with something that's a little bit more daft. And my question this week is, when does a game genuinely become must-win? And when is it just a must-win in the papers and on the online articles? So, for example, the Bengals are 1-3.
Right.
Is their game this weekend a must-win?
Yeah.
Because if they don't win it, then season's gone. And what about the Jets and the Vikings? They're both 1-3 as well, but I'm not sure they're as much of a must-win for the Jets and the Vikings as it is for the Bengals. So, at what point does it become must-win?
It's situational, so it depends on which division you're in, who you're playing, who you've beaten and who you've lost to. So the Jets have lost to the Patriots and the Bills, so they're both in their division. So their record at 1-3 is a worse 1-3 than, say, the Vikings, who have only lost one divisional game, I think. So it depends who you're playing, but you don't often lose 4 of your first 5 games and make the playoffs. I think the stats are something like 3%, 4% of people that even make the playoffs from that point. And I think so that means 2 teams have done it in 50 years, right? So it's a very hard thing to do. And also, if you're 1-4, you're not very good.
Yeah.
Or you've got serious injury problems, or you've got serious issues with the coaching, or your O-line's bad, or you've got a serious problem somewhere. And even if you then do put a run together, and we've seen it. I think the last one, Dave will probably back me up what year it was, but Rodgers, I think they were they sort of like 3-6 or something, and then he said, don't panic, we're going to run the table, and they did.
He said, relax,
and we're going to run the table. I remember saying,
was crushing a can of purple Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and then they won 7 straight, made the playoffs, and got whacked as they tended to do in that area. So it can be done, but yeah, at this point now, if you're sort of at 0.25, so you've got 1 win, 4 losses, your season's done.
Yeah, Dave, anything to add to that?
No, he's right, 100%. I think it's 3 teams since 1962 have managed to make the playoffs from 0-3. So
it's crazy, isn't it?
Similar.
I always think that a must-win also depends on what the external expectation on you is. So if you're expected to be doing better than you are, see Burrow and the Bengals, a 1-3 record makes it a must-win. No, I disagree. I'm not quite sure it's the same for the Vikings as it is for the Bengals. For the Jets have obviously got a major issue in the fact that they lose their franchise quarterback after 4 snaps of the football, and that changes whether or not it needs to be a must-win. The Giants,
he's walking again.
The Giants are just terrible. He's walking again.
Yeah, 2 weeks, 13 days.
Yeah. That man is unreal.
On crutches. That's 5.5 weeks ahead of schedule based on 6 weeks. It's normally in a boot, so he did it in 2. And he's already said that he might be back this year.
What?
I did a bit of research. Now, there's a doctor on YouTube who's done a wicked video.
I'm not. I hope.
Into the details of his rehab, and he's basically using known but revolutionary methods, which if he can potentially get back to 95% within 2 to 3 months, if he sticks to it, I think is what the guy said. And 95%, incredible, huh?
Well, so, I mean, I have questions. If they're known but not used, why aren't they used?
Because it's 95% mobility. The full way he has a chance to get it back to 100. This way it keeps, I think he said, the tendons are a little bit tighter. Shorter, so you lose a little bit of mobility, but it comes back as strong. Yeah, I mean, I should really look up the guy's name for the show notes, but it's an impressive feat if he does it, and he's basically done it by taking what he knows and going and getting the treatment that he thinks will help him, as opposed to going down the normal route of just following a process, which is right.
Beautiful work. More news from around the NFL next week on Utter Punts. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell a friend and all of those things. And especially if you're around on social media, X or Instagram, just look us up at Utter Punts Podcast. You'll find us straight away. And again, it just makes a massive difference. If you tell somebody that you know loves the NFL to give us a try, it makes a huge difference. Also, if you are listening on YouTube or watching us on YouTube, just hit the like and subscribe button there, because then the algorithm does us an absolute solid. We'll be back with the stock market game in just a tick. In the stock market game, we are going to do a whistle-stop tour. I don't think there's any point at all in lingering on this. Dan is still leading. I am now in last place, and Dave is redeemed himself somewhat. So we shall move on. I don't think there's any real reason to do. I tell you what would be more interesting, and that would be to hear about the title sponsor of the podcast, wouldn't it? endzonekit.co.uk. I could tell you all about them live, or you could just watch this video. Here at Utter Punts, we're delighted to be partnered with endzonekit.co.uk, one of the best kit suppliers out there. Whatever you're looking for to represent your American sports team, Endzone has got something for you. In sizes from newborn all the way up to 3XL and larger, endzonekit.co.uk can provide gear to fulfill your NFL, NCAA, MLB, NHL and NBA needs. Endzone source their stock in the USA, they ship it over here too, which means delivery is lightning quick and can be with you ahead of the big game. And if you love a bit of retro style, Endzone's got you covered too, with a whole range of vintage and pre-loved kit for you to choose from. So why not head to endzonekit.co.uk and find yourself a bargain. And because you listen to Utter Punts, you can have a 15% discount at checkout when you use the code PUNTS. endzonekit.co.uk, the place to go for American sports kit. Yeah, use the code PUNTS at checkout for a 15% discount. They are lovely, lovely human beings and a really good company too, especially if you're, in one of those positions, like I think all of us are in a cost of living crisis where 150 quid for a genuine jersey is just a step too far. So unlike Dave, who seems to be wearing a brand new Vikings, is it not brand new? He's shaking his head at me.
No, so I have a rule where I only buy the jerseys after players have left. So this is my new Adam Thielen shirt from last year.
Nice, like it. Should we get on with previewing some games then, boys? Work for you? Why not? Let's start with the 2:30 game live from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Jacksonville Jaguars at Buffalo Bills at Tottenham. So home advantage disappears for the Bills. This is really interesting for me. The Bills are on a 3-game streak, but they've had to travel. I think this makes a big difference, Dan, doesn't it? The team that's been in London, able to chill out, go through training processes properly, and the team that's had to fly from Buffalo.
I'd normally agree, and if it was the first London, like last week, I think it gave the Jags an edge, certainly, because they've been before and they came here earlier. Doug Peterson has said this week and last week that they were worried about the second week because without being in their own facility, in their own grounds, there are things like the game film study and things like that they would normally prep for the next game. They haven't had the same facilities for, so I don't think it gives them as much. And let's be honest, Buffalo to London is no more than Buffalo flying to Seattle.
Oh, that's fair enough, yeah.
So I don't think it's a massive disadvantage for the Bills. And the Bills are just really good, aren't they? I mean, they look really serious, and I don't know if it's as much this time as it'll be interesting to see because it's the first time that a team has stayed for the second game, and if it goes well, so you're almost, if you're rooting for a London franchise, you want the Jags really to put up a fight here and even win the game because it shows that it does work them staying for a longer period because then next year it might be 3 games, year after maybe 4 games, and then you go, and they've only got to stay for 8. To have all the home games played here in one period of the schedule, and then they go back to the States and play the last 8 games on the road in America. So that's the sort of plan, and it'd be interesting to see how it goes. I think if they could have handpicked any opponent, I'm pretty sure the Bills would have been bottom of that list.
Dave, when you were saying some of the things that you were saying there, had a look on his face that I can only describe as disgust.
No, I don't like the idea of a London franchise, but some people do. Fair play to them if they want. But as soon as you said it was no different to going to the West Coast, I thought I'll have a look at how the Bills do when they go to the West Coast. I found an article straight away from ESPN which said, Bills flying to LA are in first win on West Coast since 2004. And that was from 2016. So unless they've really, really revolutionised how things
I mean, the
go when
Brucey
they are
bonus is that
travelling to the West
they're
Coast.
actually going east.
And
So
don't forget, last year, the start to last season, the first game, they went to the Rams, the Super Bowl champion Rams, and absolutely spanked them in their own ground. The first
I
game of the
get that,
season.
but that
So
Rams team
I'm not
wasn't
having-
good, was it?
yeah, they're also not heading west.
Super Bowl
They're
champions.
definitely going east. This is the Josh Allen derby, Keno.
Yeah.
This is Buffalo Josh versus Jacksonville Josh.
Jacksonville Josh won last time.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, Buffalo Josh comes into this one off a nearly perfect passer rating last week. 158, I think his passer rating was. Absolutely unbelievable. And Jacksonville Josh came off a 3-sack game. This has got belting written all over it, hasn't it, Keno?
Well, they're playing for their name. Like, who's the real Josh Allen?
the
please
better
stand up.
Josh Allen?
It's the Eminem derby. Yeah, I mean, like, the last time that they met, Jags Josh Allen was victorious. I think if he gets 2 more wins, he does get to keep a name and make the other Josh Allen change his name. That's a rule.
I mean, Jags Josh, and Jacksonville Josh, that's kind of got a ring to it. Buffalo Josh he sounds a bit like a cowboy.
I know which one I'd have if I was starting a franchise tomorrow, and it's not.
I do
not
too,
the
yeah.
Look, I think we're all sort of leaning the same way here. And just one more thing. Jacksonville allowed a 90-plus rate to wide receivers last week. And I think that's all well and good until you come up against Josh Allen and that Buffalo offense, who are lethal.
Diggs looked fantastic this weekend, just gone.
Yeah, and they have done for a couple of weeks, really. And I think we were waiting because they'd beaten the Steelers, they'd beaten the Raiders, and you thought, well, they need to play someone decent for us to get a real gauge. The Dolphins went in the informed team in the league, and the Bills really just smashed them to bits. I am concerned about the Bills secondary. They have now started picking up injuries. So Tre'Davious White went out with the injury. He's out for the season. I think Jordan Poyer's limited in this game. I think Kamara Elam is limited in practice. And it's that element of the flight that might be the issue, you see. So flying with an injury like that, then that's going to be a static position for so long. That's going to have an effect. So I think the Bills secondary is weak. I think the Jags, if they play well, can attack them there. But if this ends up in a shootout, I'll take the Bills. And if it ends up on the ground as a fight, I'll take the Bills. If it ends up as a defensive game, I'll take the Bills.
So you're going Bills then?
Yeah.
Dave?
I think if the Bills are going to win, they all need to listen to Russell Wilson about how to deal with an injury on the plane. No, in all honesty, I want the Jags to win. I think that the Bills possibly had. I want them to win because I think it keeps that division interesting, which is starting to heat up. But so for me, I think I can justify plumbing for the Jags just based on the fact that last weekend against the Dolphins, it was a divisional game. The Bills will have been massively up for it. And how many times do we see a team after a big emotional high kind of fall flat on their face? A little bit like the Dolphins did after they scored 70 points. So yeah, I'll go Jags.
I'm going to go Bills. And I'm going Bills because I think we've all sort of mentioned something in there that means that they're on a bit of a roll. They seem to have found a bit of a groove offensively, and I don't think the Jags have got enough defensively to stop, Buffalo Josh.
A number one overall pick from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Be interested to see if he can step up because it's a big game.
It could be great. And look, while we're talking about picks, we got everything right last week.
Yeah, cruised it last week.
Everything. We didn't miss one.
Easy. We even said the Jets would keep it close and pick the Jets. We could have had double up there. And we said the Cowboys had smashed the Pats. 38-0, I said. It was 38-3. Not bad, was it?
Yeah, I mean, you were wrong.
Miles
there,
out.
Yeah.
Miles away.
See what happens when you're not here, Dave.
I'm pretty sure I only got one wrong on the list that I sent 2 minutes was.
One wrong.
Wrong.
Professional, one wrong.
Disgrace.
Only died once.
I'm pretty sure it was the Dolphins, and I sent him a call saying it would be close.
Speaking,
Was it?
no, it was nowhere near close. Speaking of the Dolphins, they're at home this weekend to the New York Giants. I had a bit of a rant about the Giants last week, and we clipped it up and we put it on socials, and it went pretty well.
A bit.
I'm not sure I've even got it in me to whinge this week. Like I feel a bit like Daniel Jones, who comes into this
Daniel
one.
Jones's contract is the best decision in football from the summer?
What's
Or
that?
do you not think that? Well, basically, you paid Daniel Jones $40 million a year plus on account of, and get ready to drink, people. He beat the Vikings twice. He didn't even beat them twice. He chewed the Vikings defense up twice and got one win. And like they were by far his best performances of the season against the Donna Shell defense, which brought no pressure. And for some reason, you decided to invest. Absolutely crazy.
Do you know? I'm just gonna. Not yet. I'm going to go back to New York Giants at Miami Dolphins. I don't think Daniel Jones is the biggest problem with New York at the moment.
No.
I think the Giants' major issue is that O-line. And you cannot allow your quarterback to be hit 14 times in a game. You can't give away 11 sacks and say that that is the quarterback's fault. When you go back,
getting the ball out.
Just hang on a second. When you go back and you look at that O-line and the protection that Daniel Jones got in that game last weekend, I'm not sure any quarterback in the league, bar maybe Tua, who is moving the ball pretty quickly at the minute, gets the ball out. They just get swallowed up. That O-line is absolutely shocking, and he needs some more protection. This one is not on Daniel Jones, but all of that being said, they're about to get themselves smashed again.
It wasn't just last week. You look at the game against the 49ers, and I accept the 49ers are a really good team, but he couldn't even turn round to look at the field. The stat that tells you it's the offensive line, because sacks can be a quarterback stat sometimes. A quarterback can get himself sacked.
Yep.
Like Sam Howell gets himself sacked. Baker Mayfield is famous for getting himself because they just hold the ball too long. The problem with this, you look at it, they only attempted, I think, 2 passes, the Giants, over 10 yards. Only 2 attempts in the whole game because they literally couldn't get the ball out quick enough. Let me give you some good news.
There isn't any.
There is. Here we go. Saquon Barkley back. Your best player.
Is he going to be healthy?
Yeah, healthy enough. He's better than Gary Brightwell. And he'll also give the defense something to worry about other than focusing on Daniel Jones, right? So that's good. The other good news, Terran Armstead, the left tackle for the Dolphins, is out. Now, a lot of talk last year about when Tua was in. When Tua was out, the Dolphins dropped off. They were 6-0 with Tua in. They lost games when he didn't play. Yeah. Terran Armstead was out at the same games. Okay. Now on Sunday against the Bills, Terran Armstead went. It was 20. I think it was 14 all. It was a close game. They were going pound for pound. Terran Armstead left the game, and the Dolphins' offense crashed and burned. They didn't move the ball. They couldn't get the ball out quickly. That's interesting because the left tackle had gone. So Terran Armstead out, Saquon Barkley back gives you a massive upgrade. And I think there's also a point that you've got really proud coaches in that team, and you could see the upset on Daboll when he's giving it to Daniel Jones on the sideline. Yeah, that when you talk about environments for a training for a prep of a game, that Giants compound this week I think will have been a hotbed, and I can see some real big men standing up on Sunday. And I think you'll keep this really close. And I think you can you need your big players to play well. You need Darren Waller to play. You need Wan'Dale Robinson to play. You need Barkley to have a good game. You need Jones to have one of his good games. And you need your defense, Cave and Thibodeau. You need these players to really, Dex Lawrence, to put pressure onto it. And if you can do that, you'll only lose by 20.
I'm not. Yeah, I think you're being generous. 25. Kayvon's really interesting. It's a really interesting one because he's been all reputation.
Yeah,
no delivery. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see whether this guy that comes in with this huge reputation and this, weight of expectation on his shoulders actually tips up. Look, is anybody going with anything other than Miami steamroller in the Giants?
Yeah, go on. I'll come up with a reason.
Go on, then.
No, I can't because you don't have a right side of your O-line. Yeah. It's an absolute joke. Yeah. I'm sorry, mate. I can't spot it.
Do you know what? Keno's actually very jealous because he wants the Vikings to be tanking just like the Giants are doing this season. But you're too good. You're too good to tank as badly as we are. Right, okay. I'm going Dolphins. Dan's going...
Yeah, the Dolphins will win the game. I just think it'll be more of a contest. But yeah.
We'll clip that one up, and when you've got it horribly wrong, we will replay it. Dave, you're going with?
Jalen Phillips.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going with. Of the Dolphins to absolutely destroy Jones.
He's got. You know, there was one more stat that I didn't tell you. He's been sacked 7 or more times in 2 of the 4 games that he's played this season, and it's all the O-line. It's not him.
Negative. I think it was one point on Sunday night where you had a negative every 2 games of 78-3. There was a point during that game where he was in line to be sacked more times than any quarterback had ever been sacked in a game in the first half.
Am I right in thinking Stafford holds that record?
I don't know, but
Was it not Burrow in that Titans playoff game last year?
I don't
Was that?
know.
It was not about
I don't
9 or
know.
10, wasn't it?
man,
I know the Vikings once sacked Stafford 12 times in a game, and that was a week after someone else had done more.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was who knows?
that one.
I know the Ravens got 12 in one game.
That one was supposed to be our
2002,
quickie,
I think.
and it's actually turned out to be the longest one that we've done. So Eagles at Rams at SoFi, 9:05 on Sunday. Eagles are 4-0. They are unbeaten, and they look pretty good too. That offense is getting into its groove. I thought AJ Brown and Devontae Smith were terrifyingly good last week, and
Close though, wasn't it?
struggle for the Rams.
Yeah, Dave's right. It was close, and it's one of those divisional games where actually they probably should have lost. I think Washington probably called the number, and we talked about Sam Howell, didn't we? And saying he's boom or bust, but when he plays well, I mean, he looked outstanding again. And he led the team really well.
A couple of runs from him.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that they were open. But all they were doing was plunging back into coverage in the red zone. But for some reason, he didn't take it with his legs. He was there.
Yeah, and but what it shows me is the Eagles have got a real grit to them. So they should have lost that game. They didn't. And you could have forgiven them for losing 36-33 in a divisional game on the road. They didn't. They came back and they won the game. They found a way to win the game. I love the Kelce Swift partnership in this Eagles run game. Obviously, with Jelson blocking the way for DeAndre. But I've got a bit of a Puka Nacua stat. So Puka Nacua, obviously, the wide receiver for the
It's a yellow card. It's a yellow card. It's not a straight red. The full name wasn't used.
No.
But definitely there
He
was
was
a hint
talking about
towards
different
it.
people.
All I'm doing is
people.
providing you with a caution.
Didn't mention Wolverine.
A caution.
So I looked, so Cooper Kupp could be back for this game, which would be massive for the Rams. Obviously, they've got Puka Nacua, who's the sort of all-star, unknown before the start of the season, rookie wide receiver who's breaking all sort of records for a rookie. He's on track to beat Cooper Kupp's record-breaking season from 2021, and he's on track to beat the one before that, which is Calvin Johnson's record from 2012 in receiving yards. What's interesting is that the quarterback for all 3 of these was Matthew Stafford, who I think is playing just about as well as any quarterback in the NFC at the minute.
Yeah.
So if you give Stafford, who I'm saying is the best quarterback in the NFC, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, a good run game, they'll score points. However, their defense is terrible.
Yeah.
And I think the Eagles will run and run and run and run and run. And all you will see is DeAndre Swift running up and down the field.
They also, last week, they didn't give up massive yardage in terms of the passing game. But what they did do, Dave, was give up big chunks. So 200, I think the yardage was, something like that, through the air last week that LA gave up. But of those, there were like 2 and 3 30-plus yard passes that went out. And that against the Eagles against the Eagles is, you can't do that.
It also skew. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think Dan's right. I think the Eagles are going to come with their run game, maybe get a little bit of play action going. But I think the Rams are, I don't know, there's something there. There's the determination to prove people wrong. And I think McVay has really managed to find his little psychological edge in there. And Cooper Kupp's meant to be back. So
and I think there's real leadership.
That could be very interesting as well, because if you've got Nacua and Kupp on the same team.
Yeah. And they're big players. There was a lot of talk of Kupp, Stafford, Donald all being on the trade block, and are they going to empty it? Those players, I think, are showing real leadership in that team. You can see the young players responding to it. So the fact that Stafford's getting this sort of game from Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua, you put in his number one target back in that, they're going to run. What concerns me about the Rams is that Anthony Richardson and the Colts offensive line mauled them in that second half, and they just kept mauling them. And if the Colts could do that, the Eagles are just a better version of the Colts for me.
I mean, like in terms of best O-lines in the league, you probably do have to give the Eagles an edge But for Colts as well, 2 years ago, everyone was talking about that as being the best O-line in the league. So
playing like it at the minute.
and they are playing a lot better now. So I mean, it could be that just because they've had the experience in the last game against a really good O-line, they perform a bit better this time. But I think you make a valid point, mate. A very valid point.
Okay, then who are we picking?
Eagles for me. I'll keep picking Eagles till they lose, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep picking against them till they lose.
Well, I'm going to do the sensible thing for the podcast here, and I'm also going to go with the Eagles as well, because although I think, Aaron Donald looks like he might be finding a bit of form, I just don't think they've got enough to deal with Jalen Hurts.
There are a million. This week 5, there are every game looks like a trap game for these teams. Every game. There's nothing really certain. And this is a trap game for the Eagles. And if they lose a close one, you probably forgive them against a hot, young Rams team. And there's lots of excuses, for teams at the moment. If the Bills lose, they're in London. If the Chiefs lose, they're on the road to the Vikings. Vikings are a cornered animal, aren't they? They're 1-3. So there's lots of excuses for these big teams this week, and this is one of them. Trap game.
Tough. Right, we will continue with the preview in just a little moment. We are going to do a bit of coaching corner. We do this every week because I'm still relatively new to the NFL, basically, and there are some things that happen that I don't necessarily fully understand. So I basically abuse my position as host of this podcast to try and educate myself, and in so doing, hope that we cast a little bit of light on some of the shadows that the NFL has. Not nasty shadows, just ones that are there that everybody else understands and we don't necessarily. Clock management this week is what we've come up with. Normally I pick these, but actually, Dave, you were the one that said, have you thought of anything for Coaching Corner? If you haven't, why don't we talk about clock management? Why did you suggest it?
Because it's every game is impacted by clock management at any point. Basically, clock management is the art of allowing your team to score whilst preventing the opposition from having an opportunity to do so. And depending upon your situation, you might want to manage the clock in different ways. There have been occasions in the past where running backs have had the ability to score a touchdown, but rather than taking that, they've actually hit the deck and basically just got a first down instead.
So I think
the importance of preventing the opposition from getting the ball.
Yeah,
and making sure that you dominate the clock.
I think it's important just to point out here, for anybody that might be listening to this that doesn't necessarily know everything about the NFL, when the clock stops and when the clock doesn't stop. So the clock stops if you go out of bounds.
If you go out of bounds, or if there's an incomplete pass. If a pass that's incompleted, the clock stops. If you run out of bounds, it can stop the clock within
going forwards.
Yeah, if you're running forwards and your real momentum takes you out of bounds, that stops the clock. So you'll see towards the end of a game, if teams are trying to save as much time as they can, they'll hit the wide out, and the wide out will just run out of bounds quickly.
Equally, if teams are trying to
then they'll stay in bounds.
Run the clock down, they want to stay in bounds.
So if you're ahead in the game, then you're going to run the ball more because the clock just keeps running. And these really successful teams, you look at the Eagles now, they're so successful because they're ball control. You look at the time of possession, it's one of those unknown stats. Look at time.
It's a beautiful stat.
It is. And it tells you everything you need to know about the game. Start there, work backwards. The team with the highest time of possession generally wins the game.
Yeah,
that's not the same in association football.
No,
because you can win the game with one chance at 10%. If you've had the ball for 45 minutes of a 60-minute game in American football, you've won.
That's another yellow card, by the way. I did put a ban on no further mentions of association football in this podcast. So
to help you.
That's a second yellow card. Technically, it's sending off. I
play for the Chiefs, so you can't send me off.
Okay,
you have to be on my side.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so you'll see teams tactically run the ball to run the clock down. Patrick Mahomes on Sunday, actually, at the end of the Jets game, could have run in for a touchdown, and he's destroyed a lot of people that put money on the spread, because if he'd have gone in, they'd have covered the spread. Yeah. Because he didn't, he slid down. It stops the clock. It stops the Jets having a chance to have the ball back and score an 8-point play. As unlikely as it is, it's real sort of head in the fridge, heart in the oven type stuff, which is very clever.
The best way to learn it is to play some Madden.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Best way to learn it is to play some Madden, because you learn it so quickly. The new Maddens as well give you scenarios deliberately based on what the clock is as well. So the best way to learn what clock management should be is just play the games yourself on Madden and you'll get it.
So there are a couple of other things that are probably worth mentioning while we're talking about clock management. You might occasionally see a quarterback take a knee, for example. Why would a quarterback take a knee if they're trying to manage a clock?
So the shot clock, you have 40 seconds to make a play. So if you snap a play and you kill it and the clock's running, you can run 40 seconds before you have to snap the ball again. So if you've got 3 downs and there's 1 minute 20 left in the game's over. You take 3 knees at 38 seconds, the game's finished. You never have to snap the ball really properly again. But you do have to snap the ball, so the centre will snap it back to the quarterback. He'll take a knee, which is almost like a -1 yard run. So it's a run, so the ball's still in play, so the clock keeps running.
Cool.
So one of the times I most wanted to kill our producer, Mr. Bell, was when I went to his house and I was playing Madden for the very first time, and I needed to get the ball back off him, and he took a knee 3 times in a row, running out the entire 2 minutes after the 2-minute warning and inspiring me to go and break his stuff.
The other side of it is if you're trying to save the clock. So say you're a touchdown behind and you need a touchdown and you've got 20 seconds left and no timeouts, right? So you've got limited time and you can't stop the clock with a timeout.
Yeah.
You'll see a quarterback, instead of kneeling, will spike the ball. So that's an incomplete pass. Okay?
Intentionally throwing the ball into the ground.
Throwing the ball into the ground stops the clock. So they'll run up to the line of play, spike the ball, and they lose a down. So you go from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 10, but the clock stops at the incomplete pass.
And the reason it's not grounding the ball is because everybody's lined up around the quarterback, so there are plenty of receivers in the vicinity.
In the tackle box, which you can't beat intentional grounding for. What you find with the good teams and the bad teams, and this is where it comes down to it, and the good coaching, the bad coaching, and the good teams and the bad teams, the good teams scramble. You watch the Chiefs. If they're in drill mode, they all get to the ball is down, the line is set, and the ball is snapped and spiked within seconds. You watch a team like, no offense, Dave, the Vikings. It takes 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and it kills you because then you're
23 seconds.
Yeah, and they're 2 prime examples. The best example of clock management to go and watch, if you want to watch it at home and sort of see what we're talking about, is go and watch the AFC Championship game from 2 years ago, the Bills and the Chiefs, which I think was 24-all with a minute 30 to go and ended up 38-38 because they went touchdown, and the ball never hit the ground. It was literally, they kept the ball and they were spiking the ball. The clock never moved. There was play after play after play. I think there was like 20 plays in a minute. Incredible game to watch, and an example of incredible coaching, incredible play, and real cool-headed quarterback play.
I'm sure that will be available for you somewhere on YouTube if you want to go and find it. Look, I'm aware of time, so we are going to move on from Coaching Corner. If you've got anything that you would like explaining, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, actually, saw something this week that we didn't know about, then you can drop us a message on either of the social media platforms that we've already mentioned. So that's Instagram or X, what the artist formerly known as Twitter. Just search for Utter Punts, or you can send us an email if you want to send us an email. That email address is info at meltingit.co.uk. Melting It Productions produce this podcast for us, and they are absolutely brilliant. meltingit.co.uk. I say that I'm the director of Melting It Productions, so just for complete clarity, there's no conflict anymore. I've now been clear. We're brilliant. Look, Dallas Cowboys.
If they don't come up with a new idea, Liam, we'll have to do the touchback rule, which is the worst rule in football. So if you don't want us to have to talk about that nonsense, come up with something for
Absolutely. Us. Drop us a message. Would be lovely to hear from you. As always, if you want to talk to us about anything, we're here all week. Got nothing else to do, really. So if you send us a message, we're more likely to reply than not. Dallas Cowboys at San Francisco 49ers. It's my fault. You just dropped your phone. Just made a very loud bang. Dallas Cowboys at San Francisco 49ers. Sunday late game, Levi Stadium. For me, this is the game of the week. I am really looking forward to this one, and here's why. San Francisco are tied 3rd for points per game conceded at 14.3.
Yep.
Dallas have conceded the fewest points. They're currently going at a points per game of 10.3. So the 2 really great defenses. Dallas's offense has scored the fourth most points per game this season. San Francisco's offense has scored the 3rd most points per game this season. And the 3rd reason that I'm really looking forward to this game is Christian McCaffrey, who is currently leading the NFL in rushing yards by 100 yards already. Absolutely astonishing from CMC. So I think this has got the potential, Dave, to be the game of the weekend.
Yes and no. I think in order for it to actually stand up to your expectations, we're going to need to see Micah Parsons have the game of his life. Because, in my view, what we've just spoken about comes into it here. I think that if I was playing against Parsons, I wouldn't want him tearing off on my quarterback. You know full well Shanahan's not going to want that to happen. They're going to run the ball straight down the throat. They're going to be using their short passing game, getting people open in space, using explosivity. They're going to try and wear that Dallas D-line down as quickly as they can. I think that the key to the game will be if they can get to Brock Purdy early and often, they might be able to put some doubt in his head. They might even be able to help him to re-aggravate an injury. I don't know, but that's their hope. They need to get to Purdy because otherwise he's just going to stand in behind that fine line with enough time and space to basically hit the flat routes or hand it off to his running back, who, as you just said, is having an electric season. I think that the Cowboys are going to have to perform outstandingly well to even make it close, particularly with the loss of Diggs, Trayvon Diggs earlier this season as well. So, for me, 49ers just looking great. We need to see him with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, the concern is Parsons isn't fit. He's not practiced again today. He's questionable. I mean, I think he'll probably play, but he's clearly not 100%. So how effective can he be? Dave just said they lost Trayvon Diggs, which I think affected them in the week they lost to the Cardinals, certainly. And I think, I always have this little thing with Dallas, that they're a flat track bully. And I've said it a few times. They will hammer a bad team. They will hammer an average team. And when they come up against a good team, they get the nose punched and they don't like it. And I think the 49ers are about as good as you get. The 49ers have also ended the Dallas season the last 2 years at San Francisco in the playoffs. I think Dallas have got a point to prove. I just can't see it. Their weakness is in the middle of their defense. So that their linebackers, I think it's Van Der Esch, I can't remember the other guy's name, they're not playing well and they're being attacked. Now, Shanahan knows that. So I expect more CMC, more Kittle, more Debo this week. Less Ayuk on the outside. Brandon Ayuk, by the way, is stepping into megastar wide receiver form. Some of his routes that he's running are unbelievable. But I think this is a week for Kittle. It's a week for Samuel over the middle, short passing, like Dave said. They'll get the ball out. And I just cannot see how Dallas's offense on the other side of the ball is going to hurt San Francisco. I can't see it.
Just a little minute here to talk about CMC, because since his move to the 49ers, he has been nothing short of incredible. And
17 in 15 games.
He 17 in 15. But actually, the better stat is he's now scored a touchdown in 13 consecutive games.
Which beats Jerry Rice's record of 12.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to push Jerry Rice out of any record book, let me tell you. Absolutely incredible. His lowest yards per carry across all games since he joined San Francisco was 4.7 average. That's his lowest.
And
it's absolutely astonishing.
And everyone knows he's getting the ball, right?
But the problem is he's like triple threat.
Yeah.
He's not even a dual threat running back.
No, he's the only running back in the league who's more than worth a monster contract he's on. And that includes Derrick Henry, who I love, but he's not a catching running back in between. Did you see his quarterback pass over the weekend? Touchdown pass. Yeah, it's class. I mean, quite honestly,
McCaffrey can do that as well.
I've seen it. You're not wrong. I mean, the McCaffrey's just an exceptional footballer. What's ridiculous has been his durability of I can't believe he stayed fit with the usage.
We said it, didn't we? I called him out for potentially being MVP this season. I think he has the chance of going out and doing that. I mentioned that in the very first podcast that we did. I'm standing by it. I think the other thing that is testament to Christian McCaffrey is that nobody has a bad word to say about him. Everybody on that 49ers team says the same thing. He grafts his nuts off. He does everything that's asked of him and more, and he's absolutely lethal for us.
And when they were injured last year in that Eagles game, when they had no quarterback play, he was saying, "I'll play quarterback." He was still running hard. He was still breaking tackles. He still scored an unbelievable touchdown, if you remember, in that game to keep it close. That leadership, it echoes through. That offensive line will batter for him. There was a play on Sunday where they flared it out to him on the right. He caught the ball without looking over his shoulder, which is a difficult pass to make. and most wide receivers are proud of it. He cuts inside, jukes one guy, he hurdles the next guy that's flying in, and walks into the end zone, and it's all done at 90,000 miles an hour. I mean, he is unbelievable. Kyle Shannon was asked actually in midweek. They said, "What looking back at the trade you made for him." Because they stole him from the Rams. I mean, the Rams were a done deal to sign.
Can you imagine what life would be like without Christian
said,
McCaffrey?
Don't even mention it. Don't even talk about
it. Please don't say that. Incredible. Look, we've got 2 more.
He opens up the others as well. Because as soon as you start worrying about McCaffrey, he's just hitting Debo in the flats.
Yeah, that's
for me, you're right, Liam. And he's the MVP now until someone takes it.
I can't see anybody beating him to it. But let's just hope he stays fit, because I think Dave has probably hinted at what might stop that from happening, and that might be injury. We all taking the 49ers, yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, okay, good. Packers at Raiders, Allegiant Stadium, Monday Night Football. I mean, the Raiders are rubbish, and the Packers haven't been great. Which way is this going, Dan?
I think it'll go the way of the Packers, because I think as a young team they're a core that's getting better. They're going to struggle against a really good team. The Raiders aren't that. They have got some stellar players, the Raiders, and if their stellar players turn up, they could really upset the Packers here. The Packers are overwhelming favourites, so you're taking a chance. Is Josh Jacobs back? He looked better last week. He's used the first few games clearly to get fit, but he looked much better last week. He was the leading rusher last year in the league. You've got Devontae Adams, who I still think is probably arguably the best wide receiver in the league. You've got Max Crosby, who's arguably one of the best pass rushers in the league. So you've got good players everywhere. The problem is, around them, you've got absolute garbage.
Yeah.
The quarterback play last week for Made O'Connell wasn't good.
Nope.
And it might be Jimmy G back, but I think we know by now that that's not going to hurt anybody. For the Packers, David Bakhtiari has said he's out again for the year, Dave. He's not going to play again this year, although they have got Elton Jenkins back this week, they say. Aaron Jones is back another week removed from his injury, so he should be fitter. The Packers are younger. I think they're better all round, and I think and Allegiant Stadium will be full of cheeseheads. So I
think Dave, there are some questions. They're 3-11 on third down in terms of conversion, Green Bay, which is not good enough. Like you've got to be converting more than 3 out of 11. They've also had 2 turnovers, which is just you can't do it. In week 4, 5 sacks, 11 quarterback hits too. So there's obviously something not quite right with Green Bay. Do you think they've still got enough to beat the Raiders?
So when we spoke about play action passing, the fact that the quarterback has to turn their back on the O-line, Love does it when he's not doing play action. Genuinely, he does. Like it's a strange thing to see, but his accuracy is decent. When he gets into rhythm, he looks halfway decent, but it seems to take a while for him to get there, and he seems to only play well once every other game. I think his QB rating like last week was atrocious, but he's due a good one. It's such a rubbish game, but just based on the fact that I do like Max Crosby, he makes me laugh. Like he's a complete idiot when he's trying to get in quarterbacks' heads, particularly Patrick Mahomes. But at least he tried. So based on that, I'll roll with them. I'll roll with the Raiders just because I can't be bothered picking the Packers.
No, I'm going Green Bay. I think they've probably just about got enough, and I just don't like the Raiders very much.
He's a young quarterback. He's going to have games where he's not quite there. The comeback against the Saints showed me that he's got enough, I think, to win them.
That comeback was only because of an injury, though, wasn't it? I mean, like, have there been anyone capable of playing QB who's not a complete turnover machine for the Saints? Then they wouldn't have won that game.
Yeah. Last one to look at is next Thursday night football game. Denver Broncos at Kansas City Chiefs, and what is the most straightforward preview of a game that we could ever give. Denver Broncos are about to be smashed all over the park, offense and defense. No chance.
Well, the Chiefs will be smarting for this because they'll have just lost in Minnesota. There's a tip. In a final play of the game when Jefferson scores a touchdown.
Why are you tipping the Vikings to be in a one-score game? That's not news.
I am. I'm ticking the Vikings to beat the Chiefs this week, and so they'll be rampaging when they get back home. Denver are awful.
They're really terrible.
This is one of the worst teams in the league against one of the best teams in the league at home. It's not fair. They should get the league should start giving these teams points. Like you should get a 50. The spread on the betting they should give them that point start.
Well, and just like give them a 20-point start.
I don't think it's enough.
I think it's enough.
I don't think it's enough.
Anything to add to what is going to be the most straightforward game of the weekend or the week, Dave? Perfect.
The Chiefs concern me.
I'm going to go with the Broncos.
How are you? You're not. Yeah, don't be stupid. You're not.
The Chiefs concern me. Their offense isn't looking particularly good. It's not looking particularly down it. They're winning games, and I know they battered the Bears.
What comeback they had against, a former #1 overall pick this weekend, just gone, and this weekend coming back could win a game. They could be on a bit of a roll. Why not? Let's just throw it out there. I'll go with the Broncos. I love our sponsors.
Bless him.
Oh, I see what you've done. Renee, who owns endzonekit.co.uk, 15% off at checkout if you use the code PUNTS, by the way, is a Broncos fan. Are you angling for more free gear?
No, not at all. I don't need gifts. I just like to help people to feel good when they might be feeling a little bit depressed.
It'd be nice to see the Chiefs offense play well and start gelling with some of these young wide receivers. He hasn't really found Rashee Rice yet. Kadarius Toney's had a quiet season so far.
I like Rice.
And Sky Moore isn't in the game, so it'd be interesting to see if they can get these players involved as the season goes on, because if they don't, they're going to lose to the Bills.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, good stuff. We've got two things left to do. We're going to talk about betting picks for this week and what the lads are going for. And then we are going to give our Utter Punts of the Week nominations. So, bets, boys. Who wants to go first? Dave, Dan? Dave, you treble?
Yeah, I'll go. So I've got to do a quarterback double. And
double? Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go with... But no, I'm not. I'm throwing that out. I'm going to go with Justin Fields to score a touchdown.
Okay, again, he let you down last week.
Arcane of Miami to get a brace.
2 touchdowns.
And if you go with that, that's 33-1.
Okay.
And Arcane has been tipped to start taking over the workload from Mostert, and indeed had, I think, 10 snaps more than him last week.
Difficult to argue against that Giants team. Dan, what are you going with this week?
I think there's a few tricky games this week, so I'd be very cautious about picking some of these overwhelming favourites, because I think there'll be some upsets this week and shocks this week. I've gone for a really simple double, so our treble came in last week. We're going to roll that in. We're going to go Bills, Lions, double, and it doubles the money up.
What's the total so far this season?
£29.30, and this will make us £49.22.
Well, that's
creeping along nicely.
Yeah, we'll tick over just nicely. Unfortunately, producer Bella's had to vacate the premises and don't know where he's gone. But it means that there's nobody pressed the hooter button. So what we'll actually do, I tell you what we'll do is I shouldn't have mentioned it. I should have just put it in afterwards, shouldn't I? So here's the hooter.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. 2-minute warning. And we'll pretend that I never said the thing that I've just said. Who's going first? Who's got a nomination for your Utter Punt of the Week? Dave, do you want to go first?
I can go first. My nomination for Utter Punt of the Week probably stretches back more than just last week, but it's becoming more relevant for me this coming weekend. My nomination is Kelce. Why are you ruining football, man? Don't bring a circus along. You're actually doing the Chiefs a disservice. You're making it more difficult for them to win. Dan even tipped the Vikings to beat the Chiefs earlier, and that aligns with my thought that you're making life a lot more difficult for yourselves when you need to, because if you lose to us, number one, it shows that you've got let the entire team get distracted by what you've got going on. And number two, it ruins the Vikings' opportunity to be able to draft a quarterback to replace Kirk Cousins. So, yeah, my nomination is Travis Kelce, and also up Galatasaray. I love Galatasaray.
So I'm not a grass, right? But he mentioned the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, and Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
I didn't mention her.
So
he didn't. He didn't actually. I was watching intently. You do get 3 yellow cards for the Galatasaray nonsense.
Oh, my back. Oh, karma.
Yeah. I hope that really hurts. I hope you honestly. I hope you don't sleep tonight. Jeez. Your Utter Punt nomination of the week, is it Dave Keane? Please let it be Dave Keane.
My Utter Punt of the week is going to be Zach Wilson, right? So,
okay,
stay with me. Right? So, on Sunday night, it's the most watched televised game since the Super Bowl.
You were singing his praises 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I like Zach Wilson a lot.
Yeah.
I'm coming to it.
Okay.
And it's the most watched game in the season because Sansa Stark's there, Wolverine's there, Deadpool and his wife are there, right? And there's some other girl with them. They're watching the game. So it's the most watched game. And there's a lot of new fans then watching that game, right?
Yeah.
Zach Wilson outperforms Patrick Mahomes on Sunday night. So for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, college and NFL, 127 starts, more yards, more completions, more touchdowns, less interceptions. It's the first time ever anyone's played better than Patrick Mahomes in a game.
Wow.
What it leads me to think, though, is that now there's an extra load of NFL fans who've only ever watched one game who all think that Zach Wilson's better than Patrick Mahomes. Utter punt.
I'm not sure that's. I'm not sure that's Zach Wilson's
Definitely
fault.
a sample size issue there. But it's a great show.
I'm not sure it's his fault, but
The problem is,
I'm following the logic.
If all those fans watch this week, they're watching Patrick Mahomes play Kirk Cousins, and it definitely won't happen that time.
No.
I hope not.
No. Dave's just desperate for the crash and burn. Do you know who I'm going with for my utter punt of the week this week?
Yeah.
I'm going with Justin Fields.
Oh.
And I'm going with Justin Fields because specifically we spoke about the Chase Claypool story earlier on, and I think we're all in agreement that story is a bit of a mess. I just wanted to take you back to a couple of weeks ago, though, when on Utter Punts, Dan here drew your attention to the Bears quarterback, Justin Fields, taking pot shots at the coaching, denying that he'd taken pot shots at the coaching, and then us proving that he'd taken pot shots at the coaching. And now he's come out and saying, oh, I'm sure he'd take it back if he wanted to, and, I think he knows he's messed up. In direct quote, hang on a second, he's done nothing different to what you did 2 weeks ago. You can't sit there on your high horse. You're not allowed to be such a hypocrite. You're supposed to be the leader of that football team. And instead of throwing him under the bus, maybe you could have gone behind the scenes and had a word to make sure that you've got a receiver that's capable of catching some of your shit throwing, Justin. Utter punt.
I think that's brilliant. That's very, very well said. I do agree with Chase Claypool, though. He is being misused. He's being used as an NFL wide receiver.
He's the next Steeler. Good luck to him. Get him retired. Get them all out of the league.
Look, it's been an absolute joy to be with you again on Utter Punts. We do enjoy doing this with you every single week. Don't forget, like and subscribe on YouTube. Share with a friend if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere else like that. And look. Have a nice time. Look forward to the games this weekend. We absolutely are. Dan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Dave, thank you.
Yalla.
Yes.